Like Theo Huxtable on the Cosby Show. Investigators say in Costa Rica, he drowned after getting caught in a rough current.
I'm going to tell this, but you know what else I know. So, yeah, I was...
What if everything you've been told about Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death is a lie? A beloved figure, a family man, and a symbol of dignity in an industry known for destroying people like him, gone in an instant. They say it was an accident, a tragic drowning in Costa Rica. But the more you look, the less it makes sense. And when Katt Williams opened his mouth about it, everything flipped. Because this wasn't just a tragedy. This felt like a message, a warning. And if what insiders are whispering is true, then Malcolm didn't just die, he was erased. It was the kind of trip meant to make memories, not headlines. On July 20th, 2025,
sitcom The Breaking News actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner, widely known for starring in the hit TV sitcom The Cosby Show.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner boarded a plane to Costa Rica with his young daughter and a close friend. It wasn't for a show, a photo shoot, or a red carpet appearance. It was just a father trying to unwind, to show his daughter the world outside the noise of fame. They ended up at Playa Grande, a stretch of sand near the town of Limon. Tourists call it paradise. Locals know better. The water there doesn't play fair. The beach is notorious for strong rip currents, the kind that can drag even strong swimmers straight to the ocean floor. There were no lifeguards stationed that day. Not one. Just a couple of faded signs.
What show did you have on NBC for half a season?
Oh man, it was Trust Me, You're Not a Failure. They dicked me on that.
In English and Spanish, warning about dangerous conditions. You'd barely notice them if you weren't looking. No flags, no rope lines, just the open sea and silence. Around 2 p.m., Malcolm and his friend waded into the ocean. His 8-year-old daughter remained on the sand, building castles, oblivious to what was about to happen. Almost immediately, the current seized them. It wasn't a gentle tug. It was violent, swift. His friend would later say it felt like the ocean had hands, dragging them backwards no matter how hard they fought. Somehow, his friend made it back to shore. Malcolm didn't. That's when the panic started. Surfers nearby spotted the commotion and paddled toward the struggling figure.
Tragically passed away at 54.
A few rushed to secure the daughter. Others fought the waves trying to reach Malcolm, who by now had gone under more than once. One surfer managed to pull him onto a board and drag him to shore. His body was limp, his face pale, but they didn't give up. Witnesses described a scene that could break anyone's heart. Strangers taking turns performing CPR, beachgoers crying, a Red Cross medic doing chest compressions until his arms gave out. They used a defibrillator. They tried everything. For 45 straight minutes, they fought to bring him back. But Malcolm didn't wake up. He was declared dead right there on the beach, still surrounded by strangers trying to save someone they had grown up watching on TV.
Theo, God Saves the Cosby Show, several cast members will pass away. Camille Cosby and also Bill Cosby will pass away.
The official cause was asphyxiation by drowning, a preventable death, according to the coroner. Had lifeguards been stationed that day, as they usually were, things could have ended differently. But they'd been pulled to another beach earlier that morning due to understaffing. And here's where the story starts twisting. The first media outlets to break the news claimed Malcolm drowned trying to save his daughter. It sounded heroic, but it wasn't true. She never went into the water. That version of the story was fabricated. Fast. By the time eyewitnesses came forward with corrections, that false narrative had already spread across the internet. Why would anyone lie about how he died?
Mike Geist helps run a volunteer lifeguard organization here. He says while no lifeguards were on duty that day, Geist's friend who
Why push a version of events that made it seem like a selfless but clumsy mistake instead of the calculated risk of a man simply entering the ocean, unaware of how dangerous it really was? More importantly, Who decided that lie was more useful than the truth? Something wasn't adding up. And for those who knew how this industry works, especially the ones who've dared to speak out before, this didn't feel like random tragedy. It felt like déjà vu. To understand why Malcolm's death shook people so deeply and why some believe it wasn't just an accident, you have to understand the man himself. He wasn't just some former child star faded into the background of pop culture.
The next day, all of the headlines read, Malcolm-Jamal Warner says the legacy of the Cosby.
He was the heartbeat of the Cosby Show, the rare young Black actor who showed America that you could be smart, sensitive, and grounded without being a joke or a stereotype. Malcolm was Theo Huxtable, the character that helped change the way Black youth were seen on television. But off-screen, he was even more impressive. While many young stars burned out or spiraled, Malcolm grew up with a kind of quiet strength. He stayed sharp, he stayed focused. He avoided the Hollywood trapdoors, no drug scandals, no DUIs, no viral meltdowns. He wasn't chasing headlines. He was building a legacy. What most people didn't realize was how fiercely
Warner has passed away, died from an accidental drowning, it seems.
Protective he was of his personal life, especially when it came to his daughter. While other celebrities used their kids for clout, Malcolm kept his child out of the spotlight completely. No red carpet appearances, no talk show moments, no Instagram reveals. You had to dig deep just to confirm he even had a daughter. That's how private he was. And yet, even in his silence, he was still showing the world what fatherhood could look like. That trip to Costa Rica wasn't some wild party getaway. It was a dad being present, a real one. He wasn't just visiting paradise. He was trying to create it, if only for a few days, for the one person who mattered most to him.
News did break today of the untimely passing of Malcolm-Jamal Warner.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
And you got your start on the Cosby Show.
It's almost poetic how he protected her until the very end. She was never in the water. She never saw the moment he slipped under. The chaos stayed in the surf. The trauma didn't touch her directly, even though the grief eventually would. But here's what really stings. Malcolm was still grinding. Still fighting for space in an industry that kept moving the goalposts. Despite his legacy, despite his awards, despite the cultural impact he helped create, he was still hustling for roles, pitching projects, trying to break through a wall that wasn't built for men like him. And yet, he did it all with dignity, with grace, with the kind of integrity that makes you wonder if that's why they never let him win big.
So even before conception, we were very clear we were having a girl. And I knew.
He lived like a king, but Hollywood treated him like an afterthought. And that's the part that doesn't sit right. Because men like Malcolm aren't supposed to drown in the background. They're supposed to lead. And when one of them disappears under mysterious circumstances, it's never just about the waves. When the news broke, the tributes came fast. Legend, icon, gone too soon. The same media outlets and celebrity accounts that barely mentioned his name a week earlier were suddenly flooding timelines with glowing praise. Streaming platforms rushed to feature The Cosby Show. Talk shows ran tribute segments. Executives released carefully worded condolences.
Breaking television and film news, it has just been confirmed that actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner has unfortunately passed away at the age of 54 years.
But if you looked a little closer, none of it felt real. Because when Malcolm was alive, they barely lifted a finger. He wasn't booked for blockbuster films. He wasn't invited to the big-name panels or award show stages. He was pitching shows like Not All Hood, a podcast aimed at redefining Black masculinity, and getting silence. This wasn't a man waiting for his moment. He had already earned it. The problem was Hollywood wasn't interested in a man who wasn't willing to play their game. And let's talk numbers. Malcolm-Jamal Warner helped shape the golden age of Black television. He was part of one of the most successful, impactful shows in TV history.
TV around the same time.
And when he died, his estimated net worth was around $6 million. Decent for most people. Insulting for someone who helped build the blueprint. You see it over and over again. When Black talent won't sell out, the industry quietly locks the doors. They don't smear you. They don't slander you. They just ignore you until you disappear. But the second you're gone, they remember your name. That's how they keep their hands clean. They deny you everything you've earned in life and then profit off your legacy in death. Malcolm wasn't trending before July 20th. Now he's being rebranded as an icon, posthumously, of course. Because that's when you're safest to praise, when you can't speak back.
Police in Costa Rica say the Cosby Show star was swimming with his 8-year-old daughter at a beach on Sunday
when you can't remind them that they turned their backs while you were still breathing. And this isn't new. Look at Chadwick Boseman, treated like royalty after he passed. Look at Nipsey Hussle, underground for years, then turned into a cultural saint overnight. Even Michael Jackson, Lisa Left Eye Lopes, and Phife Dawg. Their true value only became clear when the headlines turned tragic. The industry waits, it watches, and when the time is right, it strikes. Not with violence, but with silence. It drains people like Malcolm of their momentum, of their platform, of their reach. And then when they're gone, it monetizes their memory. That's not just exploitation, that's calculated erasure. Malcolm didn't die a celebrity. He died a man who had been pushed to the margins of an industry he helped build.
Remember that?
We had a blast.
We had such a good time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Malcolm, but I always told the writers to write a scene where I had...
And now, as his face shows up in Instagram carousels and tribute clips, you have to ask, where was all this love before? Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't the first to be ignored by the system, and he won't be the last. Because if there's one person who's been yelling about this pattern for years, it's Katt Williams. He's been clowned, dismissed, and blackballed. But the man never stopped talking, and what he said lately about Malcolm's death, it lines up too well to ignore. Katt's whole career has been built on more than jokes. Between the punchlines, he's been calling out what really happens behind the velvet curtain. How fame works, how success is manipulated, and how certain people throw all...
I think the turning point for Theo was when they diagnosed him with dyslexia. And that was that.
Especially Black men who stand on principle are quietly pushed out, not because they're unqualified, not because they've lost their talent, but because they won't bow down. He talked about the industry tests, the humiliating roles, the private meetings, the unwritten rules you're expected to follow. Say no to those things. You'll feel it. Suddenly the calls stop, the contracts dry up, the interviews disappear. Sound familiar? Katt didn't just say it once, he named names. He put it all on the table. The comedians being rewarded for dressing up, clowning themselves, staying silent while real ones got left behind. He said, the moment you stop being their puppet, you stop being profitable.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner's ex-girlfriend actress Regina King has been trending online since the news broke. Many of you may remember.
And that's when they hit the switch. Malcolm never played those games. He never chased scandal or sold out for attention. He didn't bend over backwards to stay relevant. He didn't wear the mask. He stayed grounded. And in Hollywood, that kind of integrity comes with a cost. And it's not just Katt who's spoken up. Tyler James Williams, Terrence Howard, Orlando Jones, they've all told similar stories. Try to escape the child star box. You're difficult. Ask for fair pay. You're ungrateful. Show too much self-respect. You're suddenly hard to work with. It's the same cycle over and over again. Be loud, be flashy, play the role, and you'll get rewarded. But be real, be principled. They'll phase you out and pretend it's your fault.
Yeah, these hurt. Yesterday we learned of the passing of Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Warner had several film and television.
And here's the irony. These men were labeled as paranoid, unstable, even delusional. But everything they warned about is playing out in real time. Just look at Malcolm, a man who avoided controversy, gave his heart to his craft, and raised his daughter in peace. The industry didn't support him. It barely acknowledged him until it was too late. Katt once said that the ones who refuse to dance always end up paying for it. And when you look at Malcolm's journey, the silence around his projects, the lack of recognition, the eerie way his death was spun, you start to wonder if he was paying that same price all the way to the end. This isn't just about one man, this is about a system, a pattern.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner tragically passed away at the age of 54, but remembering his legacy, we have to remember he did something very right, correcting a big wrong.
A machine that eats up the fake and spits out the real. And when someone like Katt says Malcolm's death doesn't feel accidental, it forces you to listen a little closer. On paper, it was a drowning, a tragic accident, a man caught in a current. But the deeper you look, the more you realize nothing about Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death felt like random chance. It felt coordinated. And for people who've watched this industry long enough, that word, coordinated, should send a chill down your spine. Because this wasn't a reckless celebrity lost to partying or scandal. Malcolm was a disciplined, deliberate man. He didn't swim out recklessly with a drink in hand.
Did you notice the extra red flags on the beach after Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death? 3 signs suggest his death might not have been an accident.
He wasn't showing off. He wasn't chasing attention. He was on a quiet trip with his daughter. No entourage, no security detail, no Hollywood distractions, just peace. So why were the lifeguards mysteriously reassigned that day? Why were there no emergency protocols in place on one of Costa Rica's most dangerous tourist beaches, a spot that had multiple drownings in recent years? And why did early reports immediately spread the lie that Malcolm drowned trying to save his daughter, when eyewitnesses say she never even touched the water? Who benefits from that kind of narrative? See, when the media paints a story like that, it serves a purpose.
No one realized that Malcolm-Jamal Warner's drowning death stemmed from an act of kindness, and his family still cannot accept it.
It makes the public mourn, but not question. A heroic death, especially one involving a child, ends the conversation. It makes people feel like the chapter is closed. But when the real story comes out, that he was just swimming, that help wasn't there, that basic safety wasn't provided, it starts sounding like neglect at best. And something worse at worst. Now mix that with who Malcolm was, a man pushing against stereotypes, speaking out through poetry and art, creating space for Black men to be more than entertainment. That kind of voice is powerful. And to certain people, dangerous. Think about it. He wasn't trending. He wasn't generating millions in ad revenue or selling scandal to the press.
Actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner has sadly passed away at the age of 54. TMZ is just broke.
He was building something slower, quieter, and more authentic. A podcast called Not All Hood, a show meant to uplift, not exploit. That's not the kind of content Hollywood races to fund. That's the kind of content they bury. And when someone like that refuses to play along, the industry doesn't always attack them openly. They just stop returning calls. Or worse, they let nature or negligence do the work for them. And then they spin the story to suit their narrative. Malcolm didn't die in a blaze of scandal. He died in silence. He died surrounded by strangers. He died right after pushing for projects that challenged the status quo. And just days after pitching new episodes of his show.
Now we finally have an update on the drowning death of Malcolm-Jamal Warner. Now, according to ABC7, they stated that Malcolm-Jamal...
A show that still hadn't been picked up, despite glowing reviews from critics who actually listened. When you put all that together, it starts to look like more than just a ripple in the water. It starts to look like erasure. And that's what Katt Williams meant when he said, certain people in Hollywood aren't meant to live too long. Not because of fate, but because they refuse to be controlled. Now that Malcolm-Jamal Warner is gone, everyone suddenly wants a piece of him. Streaming platforms are curating tribute playlists. Old clips of The Cosby Show are resurfacing with heartfelt captions. Celebrities are posting throwback photos and long-winded tributes like they always had his back.
An actor many of us grew up watching has passed away.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner, who millions knew as Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, has...
But where were those voices when he was trying to get his podcast funded? Where were the producers when he was pitching shows that went beyond trauma and stereotype? Where were the roles when he was still young, sharp, and ready to work? They didn't see value in Malcolm, not when he was alive, not when he was fighting quietly to show that Black men could be poetic, spiritual, intellectual. He wasn't out here clout chasing. He wasn't viral. He was real. And in an industry obsessed with performance, that's exactly why they left him behind. Let's be honest, the moment a Black artist stops fitting into a profitable box, the industry turns its back.
I don't know about swimming.
Bill Cosby is speaking out.
But the moment they die, everything changes. They become legends. Their face goes on t-shirts. Their voice gets clipped into documentaries. Suddenly, they're marketable again, not because they're alive, but because they can't say no. And it's not just Malcolm, it's a cycle. Chadwick Boseman wasn't treated like a king until he was gone. Nipsey Hussle was quietly building empires for his community. Until the day he was killed, most of the industry ignored him. Lisa, Left Eye, Lopes, Fife, Dog, Michael Jackson, all received more attention in death than they did in the final years of their lives. And now it's Malcolm's turn. The same people who declined his projects are now monetizing his memory.
Shockwaves are ripping through Hollywood tonight. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, best known as Theo Huxtable from The Cosby Show,
rolling out tributes, using his name in award show montages, acting like they were there the whole time. But it's not love. It's branding, it's PR, it's controlled mourning dressed up as justice, because if they really cared about what Malcolm stood for, they would have supported him while he was still breathing. He wasn't asking for superstardom. He was asking for space, for support, for the freedom to tell stories that mattered, stories that didn't rely on pain, crime, or spectacle. He wanted to raise his daughter in peace and still leave behind something meaningful. And he was doing exactly that, quietly, powerfully, until one wave took it all away.
Hollywood is reeling, but no one is hurting more than Lisa Bonet. After years of silence and unanswered questions.
And now they're rewriting his story without him. They're taking the man who rejected industry games and recasting him as a Hollywood icon. The same system that blackballed him now uses him as proof they celebrate Black excellence. But it's fake. Because while Malcolm lived with intention, the machine only sees opportunity. Not in his work, but in his absence. And the question we should all be asking is, why do Black men have to die before the world starts listening? Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't die chasing fame. He died living with purpose, quietly, consistently on his own terms. And that's exactly why the world didn't know how to honor him until it was too late.
The news just came as a shock. He's 54 years old, first of all, and he grew up on our screens.
He wasn't part of the Hollywood circus. He wasn't flashing diamonds or chasing algorithms. He was raising his daughter, writing poetry, recording jazz, building something real, something that didn't fit the mold. And because of that, they left him behind. But now that he's gone, the same industry that silenced his work is packaging his memory for profit. And if you're not paying attention, you might fall for it. You might believe the hashtags, the tributes, the press releases. But make no mistake, Malcolm wasn't embraced by this system. He was erased by it. And here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. The industry doesn't celebrate authenticity. It tolerates it as long as it stays quiet. The second you stop being marketable or start being difficult, or worse, start being honest.
Naturally, because now we weren't getting those residuals.
At $64.
Yeah,
$64.
But that lump, you're talking about 8 years.
They pull the plug. Maybe not all at once, maybe not in public, but quietly, methodically, until you fade out of frame. And until you die, then they remember you. We've seen this play out too many times to keep calling it coincidence. So the next time someone like Malcolm disappears or gets pushed to the margins, don't wait for the tribute video. Don't wait for the candlelight vigil. Ask questions now. Speak up now. Because if we don't start protecting the real ones while they're still here, we'll keep watching them disappear, one by one. And eventually, there won't be anyone left to tell the truth.